These are 5 reasons I think you should be super careful before pulling the trigger and buying a home in a 55 plus community. Let's go for a walk and we'll talk about this. And be sure to stay until the end, because spoiler alert, I'm going to share with you 2 bonus reasons to be careful. And I think the last 2 are the most important. Okay, so the first reason is these 55 plus communities have a lot of rules and regulations. They can really restrict the guests that you have come staying, whether you can have your adult children come and stay over Christmas, grandkids. You know, typically you can have guests, but for just so many nights, right? And there's rules and regulations about, a lot of rules and regulations about the upkeep on your house and the paint of your house. There's just a lot of rules and regulations. And for that reason, I suggest if you are thinking about buying in a 55 plus community, be sure to get the deed covenants, be sure to look at the meeting notes, and be sure to look at the current budget, right? The current budget, you just want to make sure that the HOA is healthy, because the last thing you want them doing is raising fees or doing a special assessment to raise money right after you buy, right? You want to know that your purchase price is your purchase price. And it would be really bad if you bought your house and then there was a $5,000 special assessment that you were on the hook for. So look at that, look at the meeting notes, see if they're kind of, you know, what kind of things that the HOA, what kind of things that the organization is worried about. Do they seem to be the types of things that align with your values, or do they seem kind of petty? The same thing with the rules. You just want to be careful, because the rules often say, whether you can have pets or not, and if so, what kind of pets that you can have, and how many pets you can have, and how big those pets can be, and then how many vehicles you can have, and what type of vehicles. Can you have a golf cart? How many vehicles can you have? Where can they park? There's just a lot of rules and regulations, and oftentimes these rules and regulations are backed up with fines. And when it comes time to sell your house, they're going to likely put a lien on your house if you haven't paid those fines. So they have pretty strong enforcement leverage over you. So just be careful of the rules and regulations. That's number 1. Number 2 is they can be expensive. I mentioned the HOA earlier, and one of the reasons that people like 55 plus communities is there's a lot of amenities, right? There's probably a fitness center on site. There's a pool on site. Maybe they have a happy hour every evening, which is great when you first move in, if those are the things that you want, right? You're self-selecting for that. But as you get older, you might say, going to happy hour every night probably isn't so good for my health. So you're going to skip out on that. But you know what? Your HOA fees are still funding those quote unquote free drinks for your neighbors. So that can get expensive. Also, the amenities, you might decide there's a gym down the street that you like using a lot better. But you know what? Your HOA fees are paying for the on-site gym. So it can get expensive because of the HOA, and usually there's no cap on what those HOA fees can be. So you're kind of signing up for a long-term commitment, and you don't have a whole lot of control based on control on those HOA fees. So it can be expensive. Just go in with your eyes open, know what you're getting into. The third one is, it's nice because you have other people your age. It's nice because you may, same stage of life. So it can be nice in that regard, but it's a double-edged sword, right? When you're in a community like this, I've heard that there's a lot of cliques. There's the in crowd, just like in high school, there's the in crowd and the out crowd. And I suspect for a lot of us, that would get old pretty quickly. And then there's also, kind of like running for high school, the president of your high school class. There's a lot of people that might want to be in leadership, and there might be some sharp elbows on that. You have a group of people that have a lot of time on their hands. They've probably been successful in their careers, and they're looking for ways to deploy that, and maybe even, maybe they were a manager and they had control over their team, and they miss having that control. And now the HOA, now the 55 plus community is their new thing that they want to control. And for most of us, we're not going to like that. And for my female viewers out there, you probably know this, but as we get older, the ratios, there's a lot more women than there are men. So if you're single, if you end up being single, if your spouse happens to pass away, the numbers are not in your favor in a 55 plus community in general. And I'm going to leave a link in the website for 2 articles that I found really helpful as I was doing this research. And be sure to stay to the end, because the last 2 points are really critical. So I want you to stay to the end. And on the subject of all this, if you find this video helpful, if this is being helpful, do me a favor, leave me a thumbs up. It really does help other people find my channel in these videos, and hopefully we can help them as well. So for women, the ratio tends to be 3 women for every men in these 55 plus communities. So for the single men, good for you, the odds are in your favor. But for the single women, the odds are against your favor. So just something to know. Also, what ends up happening is these 55 plus communities, right? Part of the attraction is the amenities. So there's a new development, and people that are moving into town, would you rather live in a brand new community that has these brand new facilities, or one that's 10 years or 20 years old down the street? You'd rather live in the new community, right? So the new communities tend to be super popular. Surprisingly, I was really surprised by this. 10% of American seniors live in a 55% plus community, right? So there's definitely some perks to it. There's definitely some things that they're doing right. But there tends to be a fair amount of demand for the new 55 plus communities and less demand for the old ones. So if you buy in today, well, in 10 years, your community is going to be the 10-year-old development. And maybe down the street from you is going to be the new one, and it can be hard to sell because of that. So that's another negative, right? You might end up systemically buying high and selling low because of that dynamic. Okay, let's keep going. So that was number 5, just the popularity and the fact that your new development is going to be the 10-year-old development, or the 20-year-old development in 20 years when maybe it's time to sell your unit. So here's the bonus ones, the ones that I think are important. First, it's obvious, but I think it's worth talking about: the lack of age diversification in a 55 plus community, right? At first, it might seem nice to not have loud kids running around the neighborhood. But I think there's a lot to be said for having neighbors that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and people in different stages of life, and having this mixed community. I think there's a lot to be said from that. I think it keeps us young when we hang around with young people. So I think that that's a key aspect, right? Just having that diversification in your life. And then the last one I touched on, so I kind of gave it to you early. The last one is just while there's not a lot of choice when you're buying in, because everybody wants to be in the new development, 10, 15, 20 years later, they can be hard to sell. You can have reduced pricing just because yours is no longer the shiny new development. So those are some things to be super careful of with 55 plus communities. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. As the kids say, thumbs for likes and subs for love. If you haven't subscribed yet, think about doing that. Do leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. It's kind of one of the currencies for me of why I'm doing the YouTube channel. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Let's use our time wisely. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.